What's up, beautiful people? I am excited to be with you again for another live. Today is going to be a good one. It's going to be action-packed. You're going to want to take out your notebooks. You're going to want to take out your pencils. You're going to want to take notes because I'm going to give you some great information today. Now, a lot of what I am going to go over with you is probably stuff that you already know to a certain degree. But take what you know. Like if we're talking about kick the sick, meaning being healthier, having a more robust immune system, there's a lot of things. If I asked you to make a list now of what are the 5 things that you know that you should be doing that would make the biggest impact of your life, but you're not doing, it would be very easy, myself included, to come up with that list. And so it's not always just a matter of what we know, it's what we do with what we know. And one of the most powerful things that we can have in our lives are accountability partners. And that's really what I want this group to be for you guys, what I want for this community to be. I really want it to be an opportunity for you guys to get the accountability that you need to, number one, do the things that you know that you already should be doing. But number 2, also give you maybe some new strategies or tactics or a new perspective on looking at something that you might have not thought to look at a certain way before. So let's get started here with the content. One of my favorite quotes, BJ Palmer, he is the developer of the chiropractic profession. The founder is D.D. Palmer and the developer is BJ Palmer. And he's got a great quote, and his quote, he's got a lot of great quotes, but this is one of my favorites. If the germ theory of disease were true, there would be no one living to believe it. If the germ theory of disease were true, there would be no one living to believe it. And we've put so much of our stock and our focus and our energy into the germ theory and the fact that germs cause disease. And are germs involved? 100%. But germs are not the thing that cause us to be sick. It's our body's immune system and the robustness of the immune system. I mean, think about it for your own lives. Like when you're super healthy, exercising regularly, getting sufficient sleep, eating a healthy diet at a healthy weight, you're not stressed out, you're focused, your relationships are good. Do you get sick that often? Or is it when you're run down, you're stressed out, you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're stuck inside? When is the time that you get the most susceptible to getting sick? And I think the answer is obvious. And so before we get into all the details of this and some of the strategies, I want to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about your immune system so that way you understand it. So you have multi-layers of your immune system. So you have the first primary layers of defense, which are going to be your skin, right? Your nose. That's why it's so important to breathe through your nose. One of the reasons is you have the cilia and the mucus in your nose that actually traps foreign particles before it gets down into your lungs. If you breathe through your mouth, you don't really get that line of defense at all. And so you have the skin, you have the nose, but you also have the mouth. Like not everything can live in the mouth. You have a certain level of acidity in your stomach that kills off things as well. So these are your primary lines of defense in your body. So we already have primary lines of defense that are going to keep us from necessarily with these germs. Now, if you're touching something and you have bacteria or virus all over your hand and you rub your eyes or you put your hand in your mouth or your ears, it has the ability to get inside. However, we're going to talk a little later about why some of that stuff might be important. Might be gross, but it's important. So the next level is you have your secondary part of your immune system, which are the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. So your innate immune system, that's the non-specific response to infection. So things like macrophages, dendritic cells, neutrophils, mast cells, natural killer cells, all of those things are kind of like your frontline defense. That's kind of like the front line of your army, the general infantry that kind of go around that take care of stuff. And then you have your adaptive immune system, which is your specific response and memory creation. Those are your special forces. Those are your Navy SEALs and your Delta Force and your Army Rangers. Those are the very specific ones. So your body recognizes something, or it doesn't recognize it actually in the beginning. It creates a response to it, then it creates a memory, and then your body has the ability to fight it off much easier if you've already seen it because you have a plan for it. So those are things like your B cells and your T helper cells. And so you have this incredibly intricate, robust, amazing, intelligent immune system that's mediated by your nerve system. But when your immune system is functioning properly, we have an incredible level of resilience. And when you think about the amount of bacteria and viruses that we're around every single day, it's pretty incredible that we're not always sick. I mean, when you think about it, if you had a light where you could see all the germs that are around you all the time, it's pretty incredible that we don't get sick all the time. And it's because of our immune system and our nerve system working in coordination with each other. So what happens is a compromised immune system happens when your body is under stress. So stress leads to inflammation. And when you're inflamed, then you become immunosuppressed. And that mechanism is by the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So let's unpack this a little bit. You cannot separate inflammation in the immune system. That's like trying to separate pain and the fibers or the nerves that pain travels along. So when you're not healthy, when you're stressed out, when you're not eating well, which causes your body to be stressed, when you're not exercising, which causes your body to be stressed, when you're not sleeping well, which causes your body to be stressed, when you're subluxated, which causes your body to be stressed, what happens is you get inflammation, and then inflammation leads to the immune response. Now, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your adrenals are your stress hormones, your pituitary releases hormones, your hypothalamus creates the signals, neurological signals, but it also releases hormones as well. And that's the connection that this operates on. So what's really interesting here is stress is broadly thought of as immunosuppressive. Like when we think of stress, we think of suppressing our immune system. So if it's immunosuppressive, then why does this stress trigger flare-ups in things like autoimmune stuff like Crohn's, lupus, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis? If it suppresses our immune system, but those things are an overreactivity of the immune system, how does that actually make sense? So it doesn't when we think of it like that. So the reality is that when your body is under stress, it doesn't necessarily cause your immune system to be suppressed. It causes a disruption in the immune system and its ability to comprehend what's going on in our body. So if we needed to fight something off, it's not there because it's being suppressed. Other times, though, if we needed to react the right way, it's not going to react the right way if it can't comprehend its environment. And that's when it can result in things like autoimmune issues, which is why doing things like vagal nerve stimulation or just switching from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state has been found to be an incredible approach for people suffering from ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease and inflammatory arthritis and lupus, that doing things that shift your state from sympathetic to parasympathetic, which is vagal nerve mediated, has a really powerful effect on reducing the symptoms or the responses of those things. So we have to look at doing two things. Number one, giving the body what it needs to reduce stress and optimize function. But here's the second thing that it needs, and this is something that people don't think of all the time. We have to expose ourselves to germs. You're like, what? Yeah, you want to expose yourself to germs. So you actually want your kids playing in the dirt, touching dirty doorknobs. You know, it's so hard for me to watch when I see parents with their kids and they're making them live in this sterilized bubble. Like every 5 minutes, they're giving them hand sanitizer or making them wash their hands every 2 minutes, or they're sterilizing the home, or they don't want them playing in the dirt or going to play with other kids because they're afraid that they're going to get sick, or they don't let them play on the playground because they're afraid of germs. We need germs in order for our body to build up resilience. it's actually been shown that kids, especially babies and young kids that live in a sterile environment, an overly sterilized environment, that as they get older, they have a higher susceptibility to immune-related cancers like leukemia and stuff like that. Higher risk because the immune system never gets fully developed unless it's challenged at times and given the resources to be able to get to that level. So, you know, we want to be smart, but we also want to make sure that our kids are getting exposed to enough germs for their immune system to be able to learn, adapt, and grow. Cool? All right. So now let's jump into what are the 5 things that you can do today to enhance the immune system. Now, it's going to, some of this is going to be stuff that you already know. But so I want you to do is, if some of this stuff is new, great. Learn from it and then take it and do something with it. But if you might be listening to this, be like, oh, I already know that. I want you to ask yourself a second question. Are you doing anything with that knowledge that you know? That's the key. So let's talk about nutrition for a second. So optimizing your nutrition. Food is literally the building blocks for your cells. It cannot be overstated how important good nutrition is. Not balanced nutrition, but good nutrition. And I know that there's a huge debate between the quote evidence-based community and the more natural-based community, where it's more of a macro style thing, where there's certain people that are out there that are like, listen, as long as you keep your calories that you consume lower than the calories that you're expending, you're going to lose weight and your metabolism is going to be healthy and you're going to be healthy. So what does that mean? That means you can pretty much eat whatever you want as long as you stay within a certain caloric range. Now, the other community basically says, no, we should, like, hormones matter and the toxicity in our food matters and the artificial colorings and the artificial stuff, all that stuff matters. How much food is being processed, that all matters. And that we need to be more mindful of the food that we're consuming, not just the amount of calories, but the quality of those calories. And I'm a big proponent of quality calories. Now, does this mean that you can't cheat? Absolutely not. I like going out for pizza as much as the next person. I just don't do it 3 times a week. I'll do it once or twice a month. And then I make sure that I eat very clean, you know, in order to balance that. And when I do eat pizza, it's not Pizza Hut and Domino's. It's a unprocessed, as natural as we possibly can, usually fermented flour. So it's a really good quality with no artificial ingredients in it. And just to give you an idea of the importance of nutrition, I had a family that I was seeing in Singapore, and they had 2 beautiful girls. I mean, oh my gosh, these little girls were so adorable and playful and just amazing little kids. And when I started adjusting them, they had some health issues going on and they started improving. I mean, just dramatic improvements. But one of the things that just was not changing was one of them had really bad eczema on her joints, like her elbows, her knees, her ankles, just had really bad eczema. She would scratch it to the point that it would start bleeding and then it would scab over. And so I told the parents, I said, one of the things that I know can help your daughter tremendously is if we get her off gluten and dairy. I think that's going to make a huge difference. Would you be willing to try it? They said, sure. They did it for like, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. And 2 or 3 weeks later, when I saw her again, she was totally clear. Like no more eczema. The scabs were healing. I mean, it was great. She wasn't scratching anymore. She didn't look uncomfortable. And that was wonderful. And then it was a few months later that I started to see these things start to come back. And I said to the mom, I said, you know, what are you doing with her diet? Are you still making sure that she's not eating any gluten or anything? And she's like, no, it's just too hard. We're too busy. So it's a lot easier just to give her the breads and all of the stuff, all the treats and stuff like that. And this girl now is suffering. And you know, the mom is a wonderful mom. I mean, she really does care about her kids, but it's one of those things where it was just about priorities. And so those types of things matter. The food that we're consuming makes a huge, huge difference. So you want to eat whole foods and create, you know, make it fun. Like if you're going to do pizza, instead of always having pizza out, do a cauliflower crust pizza and get the kids involved and have fun with it. or do a gluten-free pasta. They make pasta that's made out of like beans, or they make these miracle noodles that are made out of this non-calorie like mushroom fiber. It sounds gross, but it's actually quite good because it just takes the flavor of whatever you mix it with. And then make your own homemade sauce. Buy tomatoes and don't add the sugar that you get in the packaged ones. And make your own meat from scratch and do that. If you're gonna have dessert, eat dark chocolate. So balance things out a little bit. Then number 2 is movement. You got to do some type of movement every single day, especially now, still early enough to have coffee. Now it's so nice out. The weather's finally turning, depending upon what part of the country you're in or the world you're in. In North Carolina here, the weather's finally getting nice again, so we can get out and go hiking and mountain biking and all these cool things outdoors. But get out for walks, take your kids out, put your baby in the stroller, take your dog out for a walk. Make sure you do movement every single day. Go visit the park, go for a bike ride, do something. If you don't like to work out outside, just move, just anything to move your body. Do dance outside for all I care. Just get outside and move. I've appreciated, I've always loved to work out, but I never appreciated what it was like to have the ability to move until about 8 years ago when I blew out my back, and it was an excruciating experience. I literally went from just doing sports for hours a day, working out, sprinting, rock climbing, jumping, running, all that, to when I would, just every step that I took was excruciatingly painful. And this is not a hyperbole. I'm not exaggerating to you at all. I'm honest to God, every single step I took was like an electric, like stabbing pain in my low back. So I never even paid attention to walking. Like it was just something I did. Like I couldn't tell you how my foot hit the ground or how my pelvis moved or what it felt like to walk. It was just so second nature. But when every single step was excruciatingly painful, it made me appreciate walking and moving to a degree that I never would have been able to appreciate otherwise. So for those of you that haven't had that experience, consider yourself lucky, but don't take it for granted, because there's so many people that have had to live in wheelchairs or they're living with chronic pain, and they would give anything to have the ability to go out and walk and hike and exercise again. And so if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for the people that aren't able to do it. So never, ever, ever take that for granted. Cool? All right. Number 3, breathing. So breathing could be an entire workshop all on its own. I'm not going to get into the huge specifics of this. Probably the 2 people that have had the biggest impact on me when it comes to breathing is Patrick McCowan, who teaches the Buteyko method, which is a form of nasal breathing, and also our very own in this group, Dr. Brenda Gajowski, who's really big on really paying attention to your breath and this 360-degree breath where you're working on expansion around 360 degrees of your body. If you haven't checked her out, I highly recommend you checking her out. The other thing that I learned from Patrick McCowan, along with breathing through the nose, is mouth taping. So taping, number 1, only breathing through your nose when you're working out, and then taping your mouth while you sleep were game changers for me. And everyone uses game changers way too often now, so I hate using it, but I don't use it that often. That really was a game changer for me. When I was a mouth breather, and I still, when I talk, I breathe through my mouth, but that's really difficult to change. But when I went through the journey of really paying attention to breathing through my nose on a regular basis, I noticed that it transformed my energy and my immunity. Like it made a huge difference, and I slept better. So how you breathe matters. I want you to pay attention to that. Breathe through your nose and even consider doing some mouth taping. So the next one here is going to be sleep, and sleep can also be a program all on its own. You have to prioritize your sleep. And here's the motto that I would like you guys to live by. There are people that say, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like, I don't have time to sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, guess what? You're going to have an opportunity to do so much earlier than you planned on if that's your mindset and you're not getting the quality of sleep that you need. One of the best anti-aging strategies is better sleep. And I would highly encourage you, if you want to research anything more on sleep, we have some great resources in this group to do so. But I would highly encourage you to check out Matthew Walker. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep, which is fantastic. But the takeaway for this is breathe through your nose, quiet room, and set aside where you're getting a minimum of 7 to 7.5 hours per night, ideally 8, but at least 7 to 7.5 hours per night. The other thing is making sure, the last thing that we're going to touch up on here is optimizing your nerve system function. You want to really be able to shift from that sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state, which initiates the stress response and the inflammation and that cascade of events when you're stuck in sympathetic. So you want to shift from that sympathetic to the parasympathetic state, because when you have chronic increased sympathetic tone, that leads to a decrease in functioning of the immune system. The barriers are down, and then that's when you really struggle. So when you're subluxated, when you're shifted out of its normal position, your body shifts from parasympathetic to sympathetic. And then that's what creates what's known as differafferentation, where you get abnormal neurological input feeding into the brain. When that happens, that creates this noisy brain. It's almost like, imagine if you're on a cell phone, you're on a phone call, and it's been a while since we've been in crowded spaces, but imagine you're on a phone call and you're in a bar or a club or a big party, and you're trying to talk and you can't hear what's going on. And it's frustrating you because the person on the other end is trying to talk to you and you can't hear them because there's so much going on in your brain. That's what happens when you're subluxated. When you're sympathetically driven, you get this noisy brain, and your brain can't comprehend its environment the way that it's supposed to, and it breaks down, and your immune system is disrupted because of that. Also, when you get disafferentation, it also leads to a nerve system imbalance. And when that central nerve system is imbalanced, it's like having the gas pedal on with no brake. And so you're redlining your car and you're constantly in overdrive, which burns your system out. And then you don't have the strength or the ability to adapt and fight that stuff off anymore that you're facing. And so you can see that you need a robust immune system. So you have to be able to make sure that all of these things are firing in the right way, from nutrition to movement to breathing to sleep and to your proper nerve system function, if you really want to have the ability to function optimally. So if you want to get checked or really just talk to me about anything that we've discussed, just reach out to me privately. I'd be happy to speak with you. Whether you're a patient or you're not a patient, I would be more than happy to help you and support you, whatever you have going through, without any obligation. Just the other day, I spent an hour talking to somebody and supporting them with some health issues that they were facing, and they weren't even a patient of mine. We just love to help. We love to serve. So if there's anything that we can do to support you, you are always going to be our top priority. So reach out anytime. And I hope this was helpful. Post in the chat or send me a message what you got from this and what action steps you're going to take from this. And we will see you guys same time, same place next week. Have a good one.